In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I had imagined you like this for the last year, but it's much nicer to see you in person, of course. About 10 years ago, I was on my daily walk through the neighborhood. And that area there had a mix of many homes, mostly older, in various states of repair. Most of it felt quite safe, except for one spot on one side street. A very aggressive and very big dog lived there. He was probably also afraid, alone, and bored out of his mind. He was tethered there by a chain that allowed him to be just long enough to reach his fangs just into the sidewalk through an opening in the fence. And he loved to bark and lunge at every single person that passed by. It only took one stop or one walk by that fence, and you always crossed on the other side of the street. One day I came around the corner on the other side of the street, and there saw a mother carrying a shopping bag and her daughter, about 5 years old or so, about to walk in front of that gap in the fence where the dog was usually lying to pounce. Now, it was too late to shout. By the time I saw them, I didn't want them to stop and turn their back right on the danger at hand. As if on cue, the dog leapt out, barking ferociously right as they approached. And I started to run towards them across the street, but I never even made it close. In one motion, worthy of any superhero movie, the mother pulled her daughter back, stepped in front of her, and smacked the dog in the side of the head with her bag of groceries. It stumbled back to safety and retreated into its den as the mother and child walked on, presumably headed home. I had witnessed in that moment a good shepherd with a flock of one. A good shepherd sets herself between danger and her flock. Images of God as a shepherd and the people as a flock of sheep are common all throughout the Bible. The first sheep were the people of Israel, the Jews. And later it came to be representative of the church with Jesus as the good shepherd. And later still, it referred to the church with a local bishop. It's why a bishop to this day carries what's called a crozier, a curved staff that is symbolic of a shepherd's crook. Most widely known, perhaps, is the example of the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." However, this is not an image common to most of us. Most of us have never been around sheep, except maybe in a petting zoo or one that will walk by you in a Christmas pageant. We tend to think of them as dirty animals, smelly, rather dumb, and prone to biting. And that is not wrong if you've ever been around sheep very much. They're bred to produce wool or meat, and we even use the term sheep to refer to someone who has little will or mind of their own. They're easily led around. Why would anyone want to be compared to that? We may miss an important part of the metaphor that everyone who first heard it would have immediately understood. Sheep tend to bond with their leader, their owner, and they do recognize his voice. There is a closeness between them. But more importantly, one drives or pushes or prods cattle from the back, while sheep are led or encouraged from the front. It's go for a cow and come for a sheep. In that culture at that time, everyone knew what a shepherd's job was. It was to protect the flock from danger, to lead them to good places to eat and drink, and to create a safe environment for them to thrive. King David, who was the teen that killed Goliath, was an archetype for both a shepherd and the Messiah figure. The writer of this Gospel of John is showing that Jesus is the new archetype for both a shepherd and a Messiah. They are related to one another. Now, later on, the image came to mean a leader of people in a political or religious or any sense. The The shepherd is a metaphor for any leader, a president, a coach, a CEO, concerned citizen, person of faith, or a parent. A flock of millions or a flock of one still needs a leader. And that can be done from pushing from the back or encouraging, drawing, enticing from the front. And it's clear what type of leader that Jesus was. He used phrases often like, "Follow me," "Come and see." They are invitations to a deeper relationship. In your life, do you seek control by pushing an agenda, or do you seek community by listening to invite and encourage and build trust? What type of leader are you? In that context, Jesus told a parable about leadership. And he said, "I am the good shepherd." This is one of 7 times in the Gospel of John Jesus used an "I am" statement. I am the bread of life, the light of the world, the gate, the resurrection, the way, the true vine, and the good shepherd. Each of the 7 "I am" statements is a metaphor for some aspect of his mission or ministry and reveals further, reinforces his identity. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal for us. I'm the good shepherd. Who cares? But to a first century Jew, this was sensational stuff. Why? Because these 7 statements are bordering on blasphemy, and the border was way back there. These are crazy things to say. Everyone knew that God appeared to Moses in a burning bush. When Moses asked the Lord, "What do I call you? What's your name?" when people ask, God revealed the holy name as "I am who I am." Tell the people, "I am has sent you." And using the same expression, "I am," Jesus is cleverly identifying himself with God incarnate, the holy presence in the world, and that was difficult to hear. Jesus said, "I am the good shepherd." Well, why good? Why not just a shepherd? In the book of Ezekiel, the story that everybody knew, the prophet Ezekiel described a judgment by which God would level this judgment on all leaders, all shepherds, because they worked for their own power and enriched themselves on the backs of the very people they were meant to care for. Now, thankfully, unlike ancient Israel, all of our political leaders have all of our best interests in mind all the time. But Ezekiel essentially told them, you take all the best stuff for yourselves and don't care for your flock, and that is your sole job. You are using the very people you are called to protect, and you're using them for your own ends. Through the prophet Ezekiel, God promised that a new and good shepherd would come into the world, and that one would reunite the people, seek the lost, bring back strays, care for the injured, feed and care and protect all of the sheep in one flock. Everyone knew that prophecy and knew that hope. And in their eyes, it was coming to pass right in front of them through the person of Jesus. And all of that is underneath the surface. What sets Jesus apart as good contrasted to the shepherds described by Ezekiel and the hired hand in the gospel? The word we translate as good is from the Greek kalos, and it means good, but it also means with an inner beauty, nobility, with honor. Jesus and his message are good and beautiful, and that inner beauty and goodness encourages and inspires all of us to embrace or share them. It is an invitation rather than a push. By saying, "I am the good shepherd," Jesus was connecting and reimagining their history. "I am" is a statement that connects him to God. The good shepherd means he is intrinsically good and beautiful, who will model for us what that quality of life looks like, how to engage God's work in the world. Jesus will be the one who sets himself between harm's way and the people by offering his own life. The religious leaders of the day, usually called the scribes and Pharisees, were not doing their job. So they were compared to the hired hand, to those bad shepherds in the story. This is an indictment on all leaders at all times who use their power to enrich or further themselves and neglect caring for their people. And Jesus offers a test to tell the difference between good and bad. It's quite clear. When danger comes in the form of a wolf or aggressive dog or any threat, the good shepherd is willing to lay down his life for the flock. The hired hand is willing to lay down the life of the flock to preserve his own. One is willing to risk everything, and one is willing to protect himself alone, to save his own skin. And in the story just after this, Jesus is about to die on the cross for the world because of love rather than save his own skin. The religious leaders of the day, the scribes and the Pharisees, could not stand these indictments, nor the I am statements that he continued to make, so they sought to kill him. But Jesus didn't stop there. He rarely ever does he? He said, I have other sheep that do not belong in this fold. I must bring them in also, and they too will listen to my voice. So there'll be one flock and one shepherd. Jesus was the leader who would invite the whole world to God and one another. And this included Gentiles, meaning everyone who was not Jewish. But they're supposed to be the other, the stranger, and now we're supposed to be equal to them? We need an enemy to tell us who we are. We need an enemy to define ourselves against, or so they thought. And now they are equal to us. This is an astounding claim, just as important then as it was now. All those people, this is for us, all those people you know to be crazy or wrong or dangerous are not to be treated as other, but as your neighbor or family, as part of one flock. You may disagree with them or fight with them and their beliefs, and that may be the exact right thing to do. They may be wrong or dangerous, but they also may be afraid or alone or bored, like that mean dog peering through the fence, waiting to pounce. All of us are called to recognize we live in one flock with fellow family members, seeking the good of all. I think we're also called to live as good shepherds in our own way, in our own context. Jesus says to you, you are a good shepherd. You may have a flock of one or a flock of millions. But we invite and encourage people into this good and beautiful vision that Jesus offers for the world. In this opening story, the mother was good. The relationship to her daughter, her flock of one, guided her actions. And she stood between her daughter and danger. That's what you do when you love someone. And that's part of the point that Jesus is making and what makes a leader good and beautiful. A good shepherd protects the flock because of love. In this gospel and epistle of John, love is not a feeling, is not words, it is not emotion, but concrete action. Love is incarnate or made flesh. In your context, how can you be a good shepherd who loves in action, who invites others into deeper relationship with the good and beautiful rather than pushes an agenda? How can you reunite people, seek the lost, care for the injured, feed and shelter and protect them all? If you work for justice with mercy framed by love, you will have a good idea of the message that Jesus modeled. After that encounter with the mother and child, I started going to visit that dog 2 or 3 times a week, right up until I moved to Pittsburgh. I took it food, tossing it from the sidewalk and letting him get used to my smell. Over time, he began to, let's say, tolerate me. Now, I'm not dumb enough to stick my hand through the fence and try to pet him. He's still in chains, and he might bite. But he was less alone and afraid. He didn't lunge or bark at people ferociously at everyone who passed by anymore, at least not after a while. We did not become best friends, but we learned in some way to live together in peace. And sometimes that's enough. Amen.